On December 19, 2018, a series of protests broke out across Sudan, demanding the government to lower the high cost of living. The citizens were protesting against the government of Omar al-Bashir, a military dictator who had been ruling Sudan since 1989. Unlike other protests, these protests went on for months and switched from the high cost of living to total regime change. As usual, al-Bashir used his security apparatus to crack down on the protesters. But this time the protesters did not cave in. They held out against the security forces. And soon, the focus was on al-Bashir. Just like the way he gained power through a coup, it is the same way he lost it. On the 11th of April 2019, his security forces turned against him, resulting to the end of his 30 years rule.
This out of Sudan. After 30 years in power, President Omar al-Bashir has been forced out of power by the country's military.
وعليه أعلن أنا وزير الدفاع رئيس اللجنة الأمنية العليا اقتلاع ذلك النظام والتحفظ على رأسه.
The security forces that dethroned al-Bashir were the Sudanese Armed Forces, commonly known as SAF, led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, while the other one was a paramilitary force, the Rapid Support Forces, commonly known as the RSF, led by Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, commonly known as Hemeti. The two sides went on to create a military junta, but the Sudanese did not want to be ruled by the junta. They wanted to transit to democracy. Protests continued on, demanding power to be handed over to civilians. And after heavy crackdown on the protesters by the junta and international pressure, the junta agreed to share power with the civilians. They created a joint civilian-military government that would oversee a 39-month phase of returning Sudan into a civilian democracy.
Sworn in August 2019, Abdallah Hamdok became the first civilian Sudanese prime minister in 30 years. The veteran economist was tasked with leading Sudan's transitional government after the ousting of longtime leader Omar al-Bashir.
On the 25th of October 2021, as the time for the military to hand over power fully to the civilians was about to come to an end, the military led by al-Burhan staged another coup, deposing the joint civilian-military government, resulting into another wave of protest across Sudan. The coup made General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan the de facto leader of Sudan, with Hemeti as his deputy. A power struggle later on ensued between the two men, because al-Burhan wanted the full integration of the RSF into the Sudanese army. This made Hemeti feel threatened, as he would lose control of his vast and powerful paramilitary organization that gave him leverage. This resulted into small armed clashes between the RSF and the army, later spiraling into a full-blown out civil war in Sudan.
A fierce battle across Sudan. The army and the powerful paramilitary group, the Rapid Support Forces, have been in conflict for more than a year. General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, who leads the army, and General Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo, known as Hemeti, in charge of the RSF, were once allies. But they fell out over how and when to integrate the RSF into the army.
The war started in April of last year, and this is the current military situation in October 2024. The RSF controls the western part of the country, mainly the regions of Darfur and Kordofan, while the SAF controls eastern Sudan, where they have made Port Sudan the de facto administrative capital. A lot of fighting is mainly happening in the capital Khartoum and the opposite cities of Omdurman and Bahri. The RSF controls nearly the whole capital, while the SAF controls vast parts of northern Omdurman and Bahri. In Darfur, the army is holding out in the city of El Fasher, the capital of North Darfur, with the help of Darfurian and Arabs. In the south, the army is holding out very well, especially in the states of White Nile, South and West Kordofan, but it is facing a little bit of resistance from the SPLM North, a rebel group that is mainly neutral in this conflict, as on and on it generally has some minor clashes between the RSF and the army. In terms of numbers and firepower, the army surpasses the RSF. The army has about 300,000 soldiers, in contrast to the RSF 100,000 men. The army also has air power, something that the RSF doesn't have. The RSF relies on its pickup mounted anti-aircraft guns and Cornet missiles. The two sides have been able to sustain this war because they have deep pockets. Both the SAF and the RSF have entities that the US Department of State and that of the Treasury have sanctioned for helping to finance this war. For example, the RSF that is led by Hemeti is funded by a company called Al Junaid, which is a company with a lot of subsidiaries owned by Hemeti and his family that is mainly involved in the mining and selling of gold, since Sudan is rich in gold and other minerals. SAF uses Sudanese state money and a company called Sana and its shadowy subsidiaries to run the money. Despite the sanctions, the two are still able to buy weapons from China, Iran, Turkey, Serbia, Yemen, and the United Arab Emirates. These weapons have caused a lot of devastation to the people of Sudan. The UN estimates that between 20 to 150,000 people have died as a result of the fightings alone. A majority of the dead come from the region of Darfur, specifically West Darfur, in the city of Generala, where an armed conflict is being reignited. Going back to 2003, violence erupted in Darfur when the minority non-Arab tribes of the Ful, Masalit, and the Zagawa started rebelling against the government of al-Bashir, claiming of being marginalized economically and politically. At the same time, another war was happening in the south, where the majority Christian South wanted independence from Sudan. Bashir's army was forced to stretch themselves and fight in two fronts. The heavy fighting was in the south, and this led to a large concentration of Sudan's army to the south, leaving the Darfur front weak. The Sudanese army was proven to be vulnerable in Darfur, as they were constantly losing soldiers and equipment to the rebels. In a chance to solve the troop shortage, al-Bashir decided to arm the local Arab tribes to help his army fight against the non-Arabs.
These are the gunmen the world knows
the
as the Janjaweed, accused of mass rape and murder in Darfur.
We are very brutal in fighting the non-Arabs. They burnt villages belonging to the non-Arabs, they killed men and children, and raped women of all ages. The war in Darfur was described by the international community as a genocide, as it left approximately 300,000 people dead.
For too long, the people of Darfur have suffered at the hands of a government that is complicit in the bombing, murder, and rape of innocent civilians. My administration has called these actions by their rightful name: genocide.
The war in Darfur led to al-Bashir being indicted by the ICC for war crimes, but nothing happened to him. Close to 3 million people got displaced, where a lot of them fled to neighboring Chad. 21 years later, the hatred between Arabs and non-Arabs is still going on, and the war that is happening right now is seeing a repetition of what happened many years back. The Janjaweed has evolved and become more powerful as to what we know them today as the RSF. It was formally recognized by al-Bashir as a paramilitary in 2013, where he assigned Hemeti from the Darfuri Arab tribe of the Rezaigat as the leader, and also gave him control of gold mines in Darfur that enriched him. The RSF and its Arabic tribal allies are committing what we can say it is a campaign of ethnic cleansing against the Masalit. Videos have appeared online of dead bodies lying in the streets of Jenaina, people's hearts and businesses being burnt to the ground, women and girls being gang raped, where the RSF is fully responsible for these atrocities according to the UN and Human Rights Watch.
The RSF even filmed themselves in Ardamata beating and insulting Masalit men. It's a repeat of what many called a genocide in Darfur 20 years ago, as law and order breaks down across Darfur. One RSF commander even boasted about the appalling atrocities his forces commit.
I see people complaining that we rape, kill, steal, and whatever. This is our right. Brothers, if you have a problem with it, then meet us on the battlefield.
The war in Sudan so far has left over 6 million people internally displaced and over 2 million people fleeing to neighboring countries. Right now, Sudan is the world's largest humanitarian crisis, as access to basic needs like food, water, and shelter is difficult. The RSF and the SAF stand accused of stealing and blocking UN supplies. Life in Sudan is becoming extremely difficult every day. Babies are dying weekly because their parents cannot feed them. Hospitals are being shelled every day, making it harder to treat the sick and the wounded. Women's bodies have become tools of sexual satisfaction to the RSF, and teenagers as old as 16 are being forced to carry guns and fight the army. Attempts to bring about a long-lasting peace by the international community has become futile. Neither side wants to talk.
Call to dialogue in the ongoing war, which has lasted over 17 months. Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan expressed readiness for constructive efforts to end the conflict, while RSF leader Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo reaffirmed his commitment to ceasefire negotiations, stating the path to peace lies in dialogue and not violence.
It all started as a hope for change in Sudan 5 years ago, but no one would predict that 5 years later, this will be the outcome. A nation in turmoil, because 2 military men decided to hijack a people-led revolution, and now they are at war against each other, fighting for absolute power, no matter the human cost.
Sudan, bloody civil war, released one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. 8 million on the brink of famine. Hundreds of thousands already there. Atrocities in Darfur and elsewhere. Stop tearing your country apart. Stop blocking aid to the Sudanese people. End this war now.